Hello, good afternoon. My name is Kerry Gidziewicz from Douglas Jackson. Today I have the privilege of interviewing Luke Twelves, and we are talking about his career path and advice on careers within the healthcare sector. Luke is an experienced clinician with considerable experience in management, clinical governance, software clinical safety and information governance. 23 years as a doctor, 22 years of NHS management and clinical governance roles. He does continue to work clinically whilst pursuing his career portfolio. Hello, Luke. Welcome and thank you for joining me today. So if you're happy, we'll just get started with a few questions that I've sent across to you.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Thank you.
Lovely. So I think to start off with, it's always nice to talk about sort of nice destinations, holidays and that sort of thing. We've all been sort of got cabin fever, I think, over the last 12 months or so. So first of all, tell us a little bit about your favourite travel destination and why.
So I think, yeah, all looking forward to a post-lockdown, post-COVID world. So definitely. In terms of my favourite destinations, I've been fortunate to travel a little bit through work, but also a lot in holidays. And despite traveling the world, I still love Europe. Its variety, its culture, its history, plus the challenge of trying to speak a different language.
Yes.
It's got everything really within Europe, and I do love it. I think within Europe, it's probably fair to say France is my favourite country within Europe. I have a particular passion for France. As a child, we often used to spend our summer holidays in France, and it's a country that I've loved ever since. I started exploring it as a child, and I'm still exploring it. There's still places I haven't visited, and there's still lots for me to see. It's not only a beautiful country with great food and great wine, but the French people are also so welcoming, and it's really nice to try and communicate with them, and to try and learn their culture. They're a lovely people to work, to be alongside.
Great. So would you say that's sort of your go-to place? If there was anywhere in the world to go, that's sort of where you would absolutely want to be seen?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's so much variety in France. You can have be wandering the bustling little lanes of Paris and soaking up the culture in the sort of little flea markets, or you can be in complete isolation in the Pyrenees with fantastic fresh air and countryside and fantastic views. It's just got everything. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I've only been there the once to Paris for a long weekend, seen many different places in and around that you could fit into a weekend. But yeah, it's an amazing place. So it's always nice to hear about people's different sort of destinations and why they like to travel to those sort of places. So now really just sort of getting to know you a little bit better now, how would you describe yourself in a couple of sentences then? Who are you? Who is Luke?
I think I'm pretty hardworking and dedicated. I'm not somebody who likes just to sit around and do nothing. I always have to be doing something. And healthcare has been a passion of mine. I enjoy blending strategy and vision with practical operational solutions and delivery. I've been fortunate with my career path that it's allowed me to develop skills both on the management side and the clinical side of healthcare. And that enables you to see things with two lenses to ensure the best outcome for patients and for the people who are paying for healthcare at the end of the day. And I think that blend of being able to cross both divides and translate between the two is something that I'm particularly good at.
Yeah, and I think with a lot of experience and certainly opportunities that are coming up, the one thing that has come to fruition over the last 12 months in particular is more blended roles. Having somebody that's got that experience on both sides really does speak volumes, and it's what people are looking for now as well, isn't it? Okay. So looking at sort of your biggest opportunity, what would you say right now is your biggest opportunity within your sector or your skill set then?
So I think for opportunities are created by solving problems. And healthcare is currently under sort of pretty unprecedented challenges currently. if you try and pull the sort of the main themes out, I've tried to pull sort of three key challenges that I see at the moment. The desire and need for closer integration of healthcare. Healthcare is pretty fragmented at the moment, and there's certainly a push for it to become more integrated, but that is a huge challenge. The impact of COVID on the healthcare is massive. It's been an opportunity to develop different ways of working, but there's no doubt that the waiting lists, the backlog of work that's been created by COVID is huge. There is now huge unmet demand. Pre-COVID, we were able to pretty reliably see cancer patients within 2 weeks for their first appointment. That just isn't happening in many places, in many services, and that's at the cutting edge of cancer services. Imagine what it's like, with less urgent things. So yeah. There is a huge amount of work that's been created by COVID, and that's going to take a long time to unravel. And then the third thing that's impacting or has the potential to impact is Brexit, and I think that's still unraveling a little bit as to what impact that will be. It's difficult sometimes to segregate it from the impact of COVID, but if we look at those three things, they all drive opportunities, and in many respects they can be quite closely linked. If we take Brexit as an example, one of the key impacts of Brexit is potentially upon workforce. Pre-Brexit, the NHS was highly dependent upon European clinical support and clinical staff, from everyone from doctors and nurses to healthcare assistants and radiologists, physiotherapists, you name it. They came from Europe in their droves. It's interesting if you look at the 2017 response from the Department of Health to the Migratory Advisory Committee. They highlighted that 15% of dentists, over 9% of doctors, and over 6% of nurses came from the EEA. For multiple reasons, post-Brexit, there's been a significant reduction in applications and a significant exodus of those staff, and that was highlighted in a King's Fund report in January of this year, that the NHS needs to recruit at least 5,000 nurses a year from abroad, just to deliver care, so that the NHS can continue to function. So the NHS desperately needs immigration, and clearly one of the themes of Brexit is we don't want immigration. So there's a challenge there that needs solving. This comes at a time, so there's workforce implications of that. This comes at a time, obviously, as I mentioned, about COVID and the huge backlog of work. So you've got a reduced clinical workforce at a time when you desperately need more clinical workforce. Yeah. So that demands that's an opportunity, and the people who can solve overseas recruitment in the short to medium term will have a huge opportunity to support the NHS. But in turn, that isn't the only solution, and this is where integrated care comes in and novel approaches. Lack of workforce forces people to think differently about the integration of healthcare. It forces people to use technology differently, think about how staff can be used, and how different people with different skill sets can be used to deliver different services. And that then creates a huge opportunity about how you integrate healthcare. So it's in the short to medium term, it's a real challenge, but actually it may drive some very effective behaviour by resulting in a healthcare that is less dependent on doctors, less dependent on nurses, and actually uses a far more multi-skilled workforce to deliver care for patients. Okay,
I mean, it's really interesting, isn't it? You don't just sort of unravel the effects of COVID, the effects of Brexit, and I think we don't always realise how detrimental it is in the fact of, when you go to hospital, there are people from outside of the UK that are working there in clinical roles and non-clinical roles, and then all of a sudden there's a mass reduction of this, and I think it certainly opens up your eyes to sort of see, well, this is such a major challenge, not only with COVID but with Brexit, to try and get a resolution around that. There might be a few sort of head scratching, I would imagine, over the next sort of couple of years or so.
I think the particular area of challenge will be the lower paid staff, the healthcare assistants. 15 to 20% of the workforce in nursing homes is non-UK sourced, and most of the wages that people earn within healthcare won't meet the necessary thresholds for the points, and yet they're jobs that UK people either don't want to do or can't do. So we've got an aging population and we need to look after them, and that brings a huge challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I look forward to seeing what some of the outcomes are of those challenges, hopefully. So looking at if there's looking at sort of advice that you can give then, what's one piece of advice you would give to anyone wanting to progress their career within your specialism?
Actually, my advice would be the same for any career or speciality, to be honest, which is follow what you enjoy. You spend more of your working hours at work, waking hours at work than you do at home with your friends or with your family. So you have to enjoy work. And whilst I had an idea of my direction of travel for my career, I definitely didn't have a detailed plan. But whenever opportunities arose, I assessed them on 3 criteria. Firstly, can I rise to the challenge that's required of it? Secondly, can I personally make a difference? And thirdly, will I enjoy it? If the opportunity ticked all 3, then I usually went for it. And it is absolutely fine to take jobs that only tick 1 and 2, but that's more for short-term roles. So if it's a stepping stone to something else, or it's a particular need for that short period of time, but for longer-term roles, it's absolutely essential that you enjoy it, because life is too short not to be in a job that you don't enjoy.
Absolutely, and I think we're influenced so much by the people and our surroundings, aren't we, in work? And it's just getting that balance right on all aspects, isn't it? Okay. So looking at sort of your biggest career break then, who do you have to thank for that?
So because I've had a portfolio career, I've not really had a particular one-off career break. My career has developed in lots of different steps and lots of small steps rather than big career breaks. But many of the opportunities that I've been able to take have been shaped by people who've supported and mentored me. And people I've learned from and who have influenced my career choices. I've been very fortunate to work with a huge number of amazing individuals. So I really struggled to create a small list, to be honest. My original list was about 30 people strong. So please don't be offended if you're not on my small list. But I've tried to narrow it down to sort of a small number of individuals. And these are people who I've had immense respect for and who've had very positive influences on my career and my approach to healthcare. The first one was a consultant anaesthetist called Dr. Nigel Penfold, who was one of my consultants when I was an anaesthetic junior doctor. And he encouraged me and nurtured me to follow my interests in NHS management. The second was Professor David Haslam, who, as a GP, was president of the BMA, chair of the Royal College of GPs, chair of NICE, and also happened to be my senior partner when I was a GP partner. An immensely inspiring gentleman who encouraged my portfolio career and my involvement in national NHS management. The third person I want to mention was a chap called Dr. Guy Watkins, who was the Cambridgeshire LMC Local Medical Committee Chief Executive. Again, another very inspirational individual who commanded respect from pretty well everyone who met him. And he encouraged me not only to join the local medical committee, where I learned so much about the politics and also the functioning of the NHS, but I was also able to learn so much from him personally. He has a very strong moral compass, and I often, when you've got difficult decisions, I often think, well, what would Guy have done in this situation? So I have a lot of time for Guy. The next one is Catherine Ward, who ran United Health UK, now Optum, and she recruited me to United Health and I spent over a decade of my life working with them in various different roles. And she encouraged me to develop my career and gain a deep understanding of integrated care. I was able to travel to the US. I was able to travel to Australia, to India, and parts of the Optum workforce. And I was able to understand a lot more about international healthcare, global healthcare governance, and clinical safety with my time at Optum. And it was also at Optum that I had Dr. Mark Linné as my direct boss for a number of years, a brilliant clinician and a great leader. He helped develop my management skills and had a huge influence upon my management style. So those are the people I sort of particularly want to highlight, but there are many, many more who had a very positive influence, and also some where I thought, well, actually, I don't want to be like them. Yeah. So learning what to do, what you'd like to do, who you'd like to be like, but also who you wouldn't like to be like is really, really important.
And I think it is, and so many times we'll be influenced by somebody in our work or in our private lives. It might only be for that snippet, that second that we've just been speaking to somebody and things like that, and they've just had a big impact with what they said. And I think that's so important to sort of take that on board, really. And likewise, we've probably done the same as well from a work point of view or personal point of view. So, look, following on from that, then, what inspires you and why does it inspire you, Luke?
So, I think working in healthcare, you are rather too readily reminded of the fragility of life, but also you're reminded of the difference an individual can make. And I think, you know, I'm driven to try and make a positive difference. It's as simple as that. That's what keeps me going.
Well, and yeah, it doesn't have to be complicated, does it? You know, just a clear outlook. And I think, you know, that there are lots of inspirations that surround us that we're led to by people, and it's just important to take everything on board from that. It really has been really interesting having this conversation with you today, and I hope for people that are looking to get into the career within healthcare, especially within the management side of it, can really take sort of some onus and some takeaways from what you've explained and spoken about today. But yeah, I would really like to sort of thank you for your time. We will obviously put this link out there. So if people would like further information, they're more than welcome to message us on LinkedIn, and I'm sure myself and Luke would be happy to take any further questions from there. So, Luke, it's been a pleasure, and I look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to speak to you again.
Thank you.